Portuguese.
So if everybody can make sure that they like kind of squish together with their group, that would be great. There is room up in front. I promise I don't bite. How many more people look like they're waiting outside? How many more people look like they're waiting outside? That's it? Okay, great. There is more room up front on this side if you guys want. Okay. Okay, so it looks like we have a group from, where are you guys from? Tennessee, okay. And then we have a group from Los Angeles. You guys, a school program? Okay, great. And then we have a group from
Brazil.
Ah, yeah, very nice. Okay, so it's gonna be really fun. Okay, so I'm Jen. I'm gonna be your guide today. I'm originally from Connecticut. I moved here 2.5 years ago. I've been with this project for 2 years, and I'm an archaeologist. I have a master's in archaeology. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask. If I don't know the answer, I will point you in the right direction. So basically, has anybody been to the sifting project before? Okay. It's a little bit different from last year. Okay, so the sifting project began in 1999 when the Islamic Waqf, they run the day-to-day activities on the Temple Mount. They decided to build a new mosque. So they went in with bulldozers and they pulled out 400 truckloads of earth in 3 days. So usually in archaeology, we go down layer by layer. And each layer is a different time period. So if you go in with a bulldozer, what do you think happens? It gets all mixed together, exactly. And then they just dumped it. So we started this wet sifting methodology to go through that material and find all of the small pieces to help us study the past. Last April, we actually stopped sifting Temple Mount material, so we're not doing Temple Mount material, and we're doing an excavation through the Israel Antiquities Authority. So that's actually really good for you guys. When we were doing Temple Mount material, it was this really weird combination of like Second Temple period pottery and early Islamic period mosaics and modern Coke bottles and asphalt. But because we're doing an actual excavation, you guys are going to be working in basically one layer, and that layer is all Second Temple period and Roman, which is really exciting. So this is the Temple Mount today. We have the Dome of the Rock. This is the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and this is the Western Wall, the Kotel. Has anybody done the Western Wall tunnel tours? Yeah, you guys are doing it. You guys are doing it. You're going to be doing?
We were there.
Ah, yes, very nice. So this is a reconstruction of the Second Temple period, or the Second Temple. And you can see that this whole area along the Western Wall was basically like a marketplace going down into the city of David. And now all of this is now underground. And where you guys are going to be sifting from today is known as Wilson's Arch, which is right here. So that's now underground, part of the Western Wall tunnel tours. So Wilson's Arch, what they found there was a Roman amphitheater. So a small one known as an Odeon, which would have had music performances, theater, speeches, so no gladiator battles, no chariot racing, too small for that. Would have had about 200 seats. And so we're finding a lot of really Roman material. We're also finding a lot of daily life kind of stuff. And because it's so close to the temple itself, we're also finding some religious material. So we are finding a lot of really interesting things. I want to start with, basically, as we're going down to the seats of this amphitheater, they're sending us everything in the middle. So because we've been doing this for a while, we're actually getting down to a First Temple period layer. And yesterday we actually found a bulla. So I'm going to start with that, even though it goes back to First Temple period. That's the Temple of Solomon. And that's 3,500 years ago, okay? So what they found yesterday was a bulla. Now, probably the most important artifact ever found by our project is this bulla here. It's also on our t-shirts, which are for sale in the store. They say archaeologists on the back. Anyway, so the bulla of Emer is very special. And a bulla is basically a stamp seal impression. So if you're an ancient person and you want to write a letter, you take your parchment and you tie it with a string, and you take a wet piece of clay and you put it on the knot, and you take a seal and you stamp it with your name or a symbol, and then the clay will harden, and whoever opens the package then breaks the seal, so you know who's been tampering with your mail. This seal impression is a piece of clay left behind, also the one we found yesterday, which I can show you later. And this one is so special because we actually know who it is. So this goes straight back to the Bible, but this is ancient Hebrew. The first letter of the guy's name is broken off because it was opened. People tend to think of archaeology as kind of like Indiana Jones, right? So I've got my like fedora and my bullwhip and I'm fighting Nazis. Not really. We spend most of our time in the research lab like arguing over what the first letter of this guy's name is, which is actually really interesting. So we have Liahu, so Eliyahu, Gedeliyahu. These two lines mean Ben or son of, and this is the name Emer. So the Emer family we know from the book of Jeremiah. So in the book of Jeremiah, it talks about how all of the different priestly families had to go on rotation in order to do their duty in the temple. So the Emer family is the 16th family in this rotation of priests. We also know that Pashhur, the son of Emer, was the general manager of the temple, and he's the one that had all these issues with Jeremiah. And so this Liahu could have been a brother or a cousin, some sort of family member with this Pashhur ben Emer, that we know from the book of Jeremiah. And that's why this is so important, because it not only gives us direct evidence of the fiscal responsibilities of the first temple, but it also is direct evidence of the Bible itself. Okay, so we are also going to be looking for some less spectacular things. We're going to be finding a lot of bones today. Most of the bones that we have are from cows, goats, and sheep. In this area of Wilson's Arch, we've also been finding boar bones, so pig bones, which is really interesting because I've been here for a year and a half before I'd ever even seen a pig bone, and their teeth are disgusting. They're like pointy and they look like they need an orthodontist, a dentist, a plastic surgeon, something. They're disgusting. But it's interesting how something as small as a tooth can tell you where exactly people were spending their time. So finding things like boar teeth in a Roman context, where we're not finding them in other areas of Jerusalem very, very close by, is interesting because we can see from something as small as a tooth where the Romans spent more of their time eating and congregating and entertaining themselves versus where maybe Jews were spending their time. This is actually a bone comb from the Second Temple period. And what's cool is that it has big teeth on one side and small teeth on the other, just like we have today. Some things don't change in 2,000 years. Now these are special. These are pieces of stone vessels. So stone in Judaism is special because it's always pure, it's always kosher. So when we find pieces of stone vessels, we know that it most likely has to do with a sort of purification ritual before going up to the Temple Mount. So we're at the beginning of the archaeological process here. We find things. So without further research, I can't tell you whether any specific piece of stone vessel is for purity of body or purity of food, purity of making other things pure. But when we find pieces of stone vessels, we know that it most likely has to do with this process of preparing oneself to go up to the temple. So we're also talking about a marketplace, right? So we are clearly talking about coins. These are ancient coins, and this is what they look like when they are clean. If you guys find a coin today, it is not going to look like that. We find about one coin a day here, so if we haven't found one yet, so you guys might be our lucky group. If you guys find a coin, it'll look like a sort of round, sort of flat, sort of greenish piece of mud. The green color comes from the copper or the bronze that's in the metal itself. Now, coins are special because they might give us a date, and we all know archaeologists love them. But more than that, it's about, tells us who's important and where and why. So for example, we have the Hanukkah story, and we have the Maccabees, and they're fighting the Greeks on the Temple Mount. And the Greeks destroy the temple, and the Maccabees rededicate the temple, and Jews eat a lot of donuts and potato pancakes in the middle of December. So who is the evil villain in this Hanukkah story? It's King Antiochus. And we actually have a coin with his face on it from the Temple Mount, which shows you that this isn't just a story. This is a real person in a real place. And that's why coins are so exciting. Probably the most important coin found by our project is this one, a silver half shekel coin, mechatzita shekel. Jews read the entire Torah every single year, and we break it up into different sections. And last week's section actually talks about this exact coin. So In the second temple period, last week we were talking about the Mishkan, or the tabernacle, but this is from the second temple period, and every single Jewish male had to bring this coin to the temple as tribute. So it didn't matter whether you were rich or poor, everyone gave the same amount. So it was a really great unifying factor among the people. It was a really good way to raise money for the temple, and it was a really good way to do the census, because you could count how many coins you have and then know how many people you have. Because they were made of pure silver, most of these were melted down in antiquity. So to find one intact as a half shekel coin is really special. We're also talking about this very Roman area, right? So we've been finding a number of beads. Recently, most of the beads we've been finding are made of glass, but we also have some beads made of bone, and they'll have like little edge marks in them. And we're talking about Roman soldiers. They're stuck in the middle of nowhere, and they're really, really bored. We tend to think of Israel as the center for so many people. It's the center of 3 major world religions. It's in the newspaper every single day. But for Romans, this was some backwater country in the middle of the desert. So they're really bored, and we've been finding a lot of these. What are these? Dice. Yeah, not a trick question. Those are dice. People always ask me what's the coolest thing I've ever found. So in the last 12 years, we found about 15 dice, and I found one of them. And it was about this big and made of bone, and it looked like something you could play Monopoly with today. It was amazing. And on the Temple Mount, we actually found a cheater's die. So it only had 2s, 4s, and 6s. You could only roll evens. But no matter how you look at it, it looks like a normal die. In the Mishnah, which is a Jewish book of law, it talks about how if you play dice, you cannot be a witness in a trial. And that might be why. Because if you're willing to play with a cheater's die on the Temple Mount itself, you probably shouldn't be a witness in a trial. So that was very exciting. And then we started sifting in Wilson's Arch, where you guys are sifting today. And we found 9 dice in one day. So that was a complete fluke. That has not happened since. But we have been finding them pretty regularly, like once every couple of weeks. And I can definitely show you one today, because we found one last week. And so it's still here. So that's just a very, very, very brief overview about our project and some of the things that you guys are going to be looking for today. Are there any questions? Yes. So everything that we find, we are sifting from a lot of excavations right now, and so basically everything is stored in boxes. All of the special finds are in a locked box in one of the staff rooms, and then the different archaeologists in charge of the various excavations bring it to their research lab. Most of those are in the facilities of the Israel Antiquities Authority, and then once the research has been completed, it'll either go to the storage facility of the Israel Antiquities Authority, or if it's very, very special, it'll end up in the Israel Museum. Any other questions? Okay, yes. Yes, so we're finding bones from cows, goats, sheep. We found a camel the other day, some dogs, fish bones we've been finding. Yeah. So the closest we've come to finding human bone is finding a child's baby tooth that fell out. We're not going through people's graves, so we're really not finding so many human bones, which is also a good thing to know. Kohanim, which are the priests that are still, they're not allowed to be like in cemeteries and that kind of stuff, so we don't have that issue here. We get asked that question a lot by like super Haredi groups. But yeah, so all of the bones we're finding are from animals. Any other questions? Yeah. Yes, we have a lot of weapons actually. We found weapons from all sorts of different areas. We actually might have found the tip of an arrowhead yesterday, and I'll remember to show you guys. It's made of iron, but from the Temple Mount material, we found a number of arrowheads. So we have arrowheads from as early as the Solomonic period. This is actually from the destruction of the first temple. This is a Babylonian arrowhead. We found this one's from the Hellenistic period, so this is from like the time of the Maccabees. We also have arrowheads. I think it's this one. These are from the Crusader period, so the Knights Templar. So we also found like bullet casings from the 6-Day War. We have slingshots. We found a lot of really interesting stuff. Not so much in the material that you guys are going to be sifting from today, but for sure we found some really interesting material like that. Any other questions? Yeah.
What's your regulations regarding photography as we're sifting?
You guys are welcome to take as many pictures as you would like.
Vocês podem tirar quantas fotos vocês quiserem.
No, you're welcome to take as many pictures as you want.
Even as discovery?
Yeah, if you guys find something interesting, I have like a really great picture of my mom holding like this donkey jawbone.
Se vocês acharam uma
It's
coisa
very
importante
exciting.
ou não, quer tirar
And
fotos,
at the end, I'll show you
filmar,
some
não
of
tem
our
problema.
special finds
Só
that have
tem
been found
que
in the last couple
devolver
of
isso.
weeks. We have some very special coins, as
Não
well
pode
as the
pegar.
arrowhead that I was talking about. Some dice. You're welcome to take pictures of those as well. Any other questions? Oh, people
perguntas,
also ask if they can
perguntas?
take anything home. Unfortunately, everything that is found that is archaeological
Vocês
material
têm que
belongs
deixar
to
o que
the state
vocês
of Israel.
acharem aqui,
It doesn't
fica
even
aqui.
belong to us.
Pode
We have
levar.
permission to research it. However, if you find a pretty rock and you ask one of our staff members to make sure it's not a rock that we need, you're welcome to take that home. Just warning, they get really heavy in your suitcase, and you don't want to be overweight on your way home.
No final, se você tem alguma
any other
rocha,
questions?
uma pedra
Okay,
que não
so
é
I'm going to go over
arqueológica,
the
pode
6
levar.
different
Mas
categories
tem que
of
ter
finds,
autorização dos
and then I'll show you guys how to
arqueólogos.
sift, and then you guys can get started, because it's way more fun than listening to me talk. If anybody has any other questions, you're welcome to find me while I'm walking around.
Vocês têm mais perguntas?
Okay, so